Hello, star people. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Ascend the Matrix podcast. I'm your host, Chrys King. I'm a shamanic healer, psychic medium, astrologer, ascension guide, and creator of the Medicine Alchemist and Ascended Astrology. I assist awakened souls, light workers, and starseeds like yourself heal, connect with spirit and star beings, create 5D businesses, and ascend the false matrix. And this podcast will take you on a multi-dimensional journey through the world of shamanism, ascended astrology, UFOs and starseed contact, conspiracy theories, or should I say truths, and the multi-dimensional nature of reality, with the intention of bridging the gap between 3D and 5D so that we can ascend the matrix together. And in this episode, I am interviewing an incredible guest and fellow Lemurian brother, Lowell Johnson, for a fifth dimensional conversation that will inspire you to take a trip to Mount Shasta ASAP and leave you questioning the nature of reality itself. Lowell is a light worker, ascension blogger, host of Starbucks Mystery School podcast, author of Starbucks Dimensional Adventures, and most notably, a Lemurian contactee and Telos delegate. Hiking alone in the forests of Mount Shasta, California, completely unaware of Telos and Lemurians, he never could have expected the mountain to open up and invite him inside. This experience triggered an awakening meant to be shared with all of humanity, and he's bringing you that story today. Thank you, Lowell, for being here on Ascend the Matrix podcast. I have been fascinated with your story and your experiences, and just before we got on here, we had some incredible conversations about the current energies that are at play and really connecting our energies in with each other. And I just want to say thank you so much for being here, for one, and welcome.
Thank you for inviting me. Yeah, I just looked at the clock. Our green room time was 25 minutes long. So there was a lot of good stuff in there.
Yeah.
But I think, we want to speak from the level that we're at. And I'm not saying, and I don't want to posture myself as, this guy thinks he's talking to us from up here.
Right.
I've just been open to some things that certainly resonate with others that's just new to their experiences. I just got there first. So, let's start by talking about Shasta.
Lowell, I was just going to say, most of the people who are listening to this who would be attracted to a podcast called Ascend the Matrix, right? They are on board with what we're going to talk about today, and it's not only intriguing, but for me, it's necessary because your story also helped me. I didn't need to be told that Telos was a real place or that there was something under Mount Shasta, and those are all the things that we're going to get into today. But when someone who, like yourself, feels relatable, you do, and someone who I feel like, hey, I don't think that he's doing anything extra special. I think he was chosen based on your connections to Lemuria and probably a contract you've created with them, to be the one that is a torchbearer and shares this information so that other people can go and say, maybe not look to go into the side of the mountain like that, but to say something deeper, no pun intended, is going on here. So I want you to tell us, of course, about your experience, but how you got to that point, and also share with us how your life was up to this point. Because most people, when they think about Mount Shasta, they think of people who live in the woods eating daisies and living on the mountain and, channeling Arcturians all the time. And that's just not actually the norm. There are people who are very grounded, who lived the human experience, or what we would call the normal human experience. So you don't have to be covered in crystals or calling yourself a starseed to vibrate at the frequency of the heart and 5D, which is where you were taken truly. So tell us about some of that.
It's crazy to see the things that humans do, isn't it? We can make ourselves believe anything, but I lived a life like everybody else, although looking back on it now, when I understand the idea of reincarnation, and I'm cool with the idea because I am aware of past lives I've had, and these revelations have come recently. This isn't something that I grew up understanding. There was a point in, here's my timeline, so others can kind of gauge it against mine. I had a a TIA. It's a mini stroke at the very end of 2015. It's right here. I had a blockage going to my carotid artery. And anyway, the 30 days of recovery on the couch after that was the door that opened me to satisfying all of the curiosities I had about if I could touch source, spirit, God, whatever you want to label it.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in that.
Yeah.
I've been through the church. I served my time. I did all that. I was a leader in church and I wanted to understand it for myself. But when I started to talk about understanding this incarnation, I wasn't born looking back at it thinking that I was going to require a lot of parental instruction. My father was divorced by the time I was 4, and in 1958 he got custody. So something about that doesn't speak well about my natural mother. But anyway, I'll grow up really not understanding what a mom was.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because if you never had that frame of reference, you don't really understand the difference. My dad and I didn't really gel. And he was a young man with a young family, and he still had to live his life. Bless his heart, he was doing what he was supposed to do. Anyway, my life was going to be I'll think of the word. There's other things to do other than me rallying around this independence idea, but it was just there my whole life. Things had come to me over life. I was relatively quick. There's the Capricorn part of me says, oh God, everybody needs to know about all of this. And I'm trying to abbreviate my story to get you to the stuff that matters today.
Yeah.
But to put this into perspective, I grew up living the same life everybody else did.
And that's
conditioned
really the point,
by
Lowell.
the parents that were conditioned by their parents, that were conditioned by their parents, and on and on and on.
Yeah.
So the idea we were going to go to school, do well, get a job, raise a family, have a house, and yes.
Yeah.
I chased that same dream like everybody else.
So is your sun sign Capricorn?
Yes.
Well, okay, let's just be very clear that I want people to hear that, a lot of us starseeds, Lemurian starseeds, galactics, light workers, we incarnate into very human, dense experiences. We have traumas that we come in specifically contracted to have, but also many of us decided to not fully be asleep. I don't even want to put it that way, but to just be a human for a while and sort of master that experience before having the wake up experience. And also many of us are waking up after 1987, 2012, 2020. There are points where before those points, it was just less likely for this mass wake up to happen or this consciousness to come in. But also having Capricorn sun in tropical astrology, talk about chasing the boats and the houses and the cars and the money and the job. That fits with that. So it's just like letting yourself fully be human and letting yourself fully let the chart, if you will, take over and not embed itself, but express itself. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I resonate with that a lot. Anyway, so my background isn't unlike a lot of the rest of you. Aside from the fact that I chose to move. I started out, I didn't think I was going to be in the hotel business. I thought I was going to be a professional hockey official. That's where my life was going, and then things changed. But when I got in the hotel business, there was 2 choices I could make. I was either going to stay in my neighborhood and, raise my family like everybody else I went to school with, and then go through the pains of trying to move up. One of the general managers I worked for early in my career said, it'll be much easier for you to grow into a GM position if that's what you want, if you're willing to relocate. Oh, then you always come back and look, your credentials are just bigger than that. So that was a choice I took. Mm-hmm. And so 9 states later, I had a hospitality career that covered a lot of the United States. And when I look back, at first I was a little reluctant because I was watching all the rest of my friends and their families, kind of grow here. It wasn't until like the third or fourth place I went that I learned the places I went to, I found family there. The
Mm-hmm.
people I worked with,
Yeah.
the neighbors that just kind of, I drew, holy cow, I had these pods
Yeah.
of family now. And such is the nature of hotel people, we don't tend to stay in the same place very long. So now think of that network as now they've all branched out in different places. So you got landing places in many places now.
Yeah.
So as time went on, this happened in 2015. I was still consulting, but I was into the casino side of things, which I hadn't been in before. I was in the non-gaming element, and so it was my world. And I always loved reconstruction projects,
Mm-hmm.
renovation projects. I had an opportunity to go work for one in Baton Rouge and loved the community, loved the project, loved my staff. There was culture change that took place there. And this was all kind of coinciding with when this had happened.
Yeah.
This was 2016. So my curiosity is up. So as I explained in December, because meditation is going to be an important part of this,
Mm-hmm.
Because it was one of the therapies my surgeon had suggested. The first weekend in December in 2015 was my surgery. 30 days I was going to be on the couch. And that was when I started to research everything I could about meditation. It wouldn't be until about the third week that I'll come back to watch The Secret for the third time and see transcendental meditation in there. And now something finally clicked.
Mm-hmm.
So I started to do research on TM. And TM trainers and the way that they're trained is all uniform, the way that Maharishi trained everybody the same way. They're not on every corner.
Right.
And so when I started to look, you want to see how things were beginning to line up for me then. The trainer I found in Santa Rosa lived less than a mile away from my house.
Wow. Wow.
And so this 4-day initiation is 4 consecutive days of 90 minutes the first day, 1 hour after that with a small group. By the second day, I feel something different. Like there's a calmness that you can command. And I used to have this, I thought it was always indigestion that would flare. I was carrying a stress ball that after that day, gone and gone forever.
Wow.
By the third day, I can sense the differences between when I meditate with this small group and when I meditate at home. So I'm getting all the little idiosyncrasies. By day 4, even my trainer thinks, you'd be good to teach others how to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And just from my perspective, after 4 days, if I felt that good, everybody needs to know about this.
Right.
And so that was what I thought I was going to do.
Yeah.
So I continue to practice, and over a few months' time, the first few months, it's rough. You can get to that quiet place, but it ain't easy.
Yeah.
You have to force yourself, exercise yourself to get to that quiet place. And then you're at the field of probabilities, and whatever you wish to chase from here is at your doorstep.
Yeah.
After a few months of doing that, it just becomes part of who you are.
Yeah.
And
Capricorn,
yes, you'll take time out during the day, but it's there.
You all are good at taking on a challenge, and transcendental meditation, as much as it is actually surrendering and not being so Capricornian.
Yes.
You have to push through a membrane at first before you get there, So, and what I find is in a lot of people's stories, a lot of my clients who come for ascension and awakening coaching and activations, a lot of their dark night of the soul and their awakenings and their portals into their spiritual awakening happened after some type of illness, after like a shamanic initiation, if you will. This something happens that puts you down and knocks you out of the loop of working and being embedded in your life, and all of the sudden you're brought to this place of stillness. I always tell people, Buddha downloaded all of that while sitting under a tree for 40 days. He wasn't going and doing anything. So do you feel that the TIA and the mini stroke was sort of by design on some level?
Yeah, that's a conclusion I came to. That
Yeah,
if I had to pinpoint
I
a
feel
point
that.
at which there was, and I want to call it a trigger, that
Yes.
was it.
Yeah.
Because everything changed after that. The way I looked at things, it wasn't that I was open to other things, because I was open to, power is greater than me.
Yeah.
This was on a whole different level.
Uh-huh. Do you
Yeah.
feel that maybe more of the light of your soul, or more of the consciousness that you really are outside of Lowell, the human, was able to get in there more because you made space for it? And so suddenly it was like
Wow.
there's a
You
higher,
characterized that wonderfully.
yeah, that's how
And
it
I hope
looks
other
to me
people kind of
psychically too.
feel that with, yes, that's really part of it. And we can get into when you leave your body. That's a
Yeah.
whole topic for another day, and
Yeah.
we should
That's
have
part two.
been. Yes. So let's get back on track. The reason I wanted to underscore meditation so much is that without that tool, Chrys, I wouldn't have been able to get to the place
Right.
that would reveal any of that to me.
Yeah.
So once I mastered the ability to find that quiet spot, two things happened. One, the world started to open up and all these veils started to pull back. And I was starting to straddle these dimensions, seeing things from higher fields, coming back to report on them. um, I said there was a second thing, and when I remember what it is, I'll come back to it. But
I'm like waiting. I'm like, okay, there's a second one. I'm waiting for it.
oh, I will. But anyway, on to the next thing. So, then the impulse, there's a like a compelling to just, this spirit seems so close that whatever way I can explore it, I want to explore.
Yeah.
So there was a period in 2018 where somehow ayahuasca had been brought into my field. And my son had friends that had been through these journeys before, and I just needed to know more about it.
Yeah.
Look, if this is a plant medicine way for me to make that kind of connection, then I'm past all the fear stuff.
Yeah.
I think I know where we're going with all this, and so I'm not afraid. If my life was going to be taken from this carbon body today, doesn't matter a bit, because I know where this goes. Anyhow, there was an opportunity. Well, when I started to do my research, I was interested in going to Peru for an authentic in the woods with a shaman who's been trained by generations of family for this experience. And then it was brought to my attention, there's actually an organization out of Tucson, because in the state of Arizona, they are protected because that's considered a religious ritual, and they're allowed to do that. Well, every now and then, Steve and Kat will take the show on the road. And so when I got an opportunity to take advantage of it, it was a 40-mile drive from my home to Movado, where they had found a house. They'd been at before. The conditions were perfect. So 3 days later, I drove home in between, but because it was close enough, there were profound things that wouldn't play themselves out until later.
Yeah.
And one of those things would present themselves when I was in Telos, and an observation would be made. So,
I usually find, just real quick, with plant medicine, because that's one of the major sectors of the work that I do. And when we're working with medicine such as Grandmother Ayahuasca, which is extremely intelligent, there's a lot of things that may happen during. I have clients sometimes that it's many different medicines can do that, but they'll just purge or they'll just have a peaceful experience. And then when they
Yes.
get home for weeks after is when all of the stuff really downloads and comes in. The retreat or the ceremony itself is like a portal opening. It is not
I
the
agree. It's kind of the
everythingness.
initiation of, what's
Yes.
to come.
And that
Yes.
spirit will stay with you and keep working with you, especially Grandmother Aya. She keeps working with you for weeks, months. It's a long process after.
Yeah, it kind of cracks the door open. It was a really
Yes.
good way you put that. It cracks the door open to curiosities you got, and that's all she was doing, was just allowing you to see the things you need to see.
Yes. Yes.
The people that I was there with, their intent was very different from mine. I understood that this is a wonderful way to deal with different types of trauma, and there was a flavor for everybody in the room.
Right.
My intent was that if I can connect to source this way, spirit, then that's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
Um, Not to go into it too deeply, but the first night, the typical Capricorn part of me wants to understand the ceremony.
Totally.
So I wanted to know what the shaman was doing, what everybody else was doing. I wasn't paying attention to the actual ceremony
Right.
until I realized, well, maybe I should.
Yeah.
Because like 90 minutes into the first brew that you take, I'm not really feeling anything.
Right.
And you're welcome to go up and get more, once you're ready. But once I had that thought, then all of a sudden, oh my God, did it come on?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
I
here we
know.
go. Anyway, I don't want to belabor that too much, other than it was just part of the journey along the way, and it was
Well,
going to
it's
happen
yeah, I was going to say
before.
it's an important part of the journey. And just to tell people, there's a lot of people who are hesitant about working with plant medicine, whether they're afraid of it or they have this, especially spiritual people or conscious people, have this notion that I don't need something to try to do the work for me. I can get there on my own. And it's like, this is a plant spirit. These are plant spirits and medicines that are there to support you. You could heal yourself, or you could go to therapy. You could go to a practitioner. That's what they are, as master teachers. And I
Yes.
think, someone like a plant spirit like Grandmother Aya, who's been here for millions of years, I think she remembers and holds the key, like many of the other plant medicines, to what this planet was like before this false matrix, before this 3D density. She's holding keys and bridges to the realm that we're going to be talking about here. Not necessarily
Yeah.
just Telos, but the people there lived on a planet that was very different than this one. Okay,
Their commune with Earth had a different way of just extracting the magic out of it. And
yeah,
that's what those plants do.
yes, they do.
People back then already had this osmosis with the earth.
That's
They
right.
just felt it, and this just helped them in our third density duality learning phases how to get help to deal with the next thing that's on our
Yeah,
journey. And our journeys are all different, things that we should be embracing with everybody else. Sooner or later, all of our experiences reach the Akashic records, and they're the collective benefits from it.
yeah.
So I'll thank you again, like I thank most. Thank you for all the shitty things you had to learn, Chris, on my behalf, and you're welcome for the things I went through. So
Yeah.
they weren't the same, and they weren't supposed to. But believe me, when these light workers find themselves again in the tribe, any one of them has a gift that no one else has. It's magnificent.
Yeah.
But watch, when there's a room full of us, watch what we can do then.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
That's the same
we're
thing
here
with
to anchor
crystals.
light.
Like, I know that
Yes.
you do a lot of work with Andara crystals. And, when you put crystals in a grid, that's a whole different thing than just a singular organism. Crystals grow in a grid, they grow in groups. And so it's about really shining up your crystal and getting it really clear, and then bringing it all together to create these huge portals and these huge openings. That's what these ayahuasca ceremonies are. That's why you sit around a circle. That's why we're creating these vortex points. And I think it's beautiful that you opened up to meditation, but also as you opened up, spirit started to come in, your soul started to come in, and then Grandmother Ayahuasca made her way in there because for some reason there's probably a contract that you had with her to elevate you even more and to clear out some density so that you could get to the point of going to a place like Mount Shasta, for instance. There's many sacred sites on the planet, but Mount Shasta is quite unique and revered across the entire planet. And so you do, to access Shasta's deeper and more multidimensional nature, you do have to do some work or have some framework and even some contracts, but some density work that you have to clear to get to that point, I believe.
Let's make no mistake. This is vibrational.
Yeah.
And when your vibration matches theirs, you will experience the things in that field.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. So let's move to Shasta. We talked about what I was doing in 2018. Oh, I should mention along the way, though, that there was a book that one of my son's friends who had some ayahuasca experience had told me about. And if you know the Afterlife of Billy Fingers, it's an amazing book written by his sister Annie. And this book came at the same time that was going to help me really comprehend the afterlife, because this was about Billy passing on through a horrible accident and coming back to narrate a book through his sister on what was going on the other side.
Yeah.
This 264-page book I've read at least a dozen times resonated with me and helped me understand things from Billy's perspective. And that was what he was trying to do. And it wasn't that he didn't have to kind of knock it into his sister. The way he finally got through to her is she had this writers group that she was working with. None of them really knew about her circumstances and Billy, other than maybe the leader, and it was this woman they called Tex. When Billy started to communicate things to Tex and to a guy that was in this group, that's when Annie went, oh my God. And that's when Tex and the other guy said, how did you know that? So this communication multidimensionally was starting to take shape. And this book is a wonderful way for others to kind of embrace this idea. It was fabulous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that reminds me of a book called My Life After Death by Jamie Butler and Eric Meadows, where these books where these spirits come back and channel their experience after death and what it's like over there in their contracts. It really gives you a better understanding of multidimensionality as well, which we're going to need to know before we get up in the mountain and go through the portal. We have to understand the multidimensional nature of all of this and what's happening beyond this physical body, because you can be in the body and access these realms, but you can be out of it. I mean, we as humans tend to think that we're just consciousness in a body, and then when we die, it's done, and there's multiple timelines.
Oh, no,
there's all
that's
these webs.
So wrong.
And
I wish I could tell you that I understand it. All I can tell you is that I vibrate at the level that this has to happen. So let's talk about how I got to Shasta. So right after I'd gone back to Baton Rouge, shortly after the ayahuasca experience in 2018. Same project, new owners. Now this riverboat's actually coming on land. And so I got really things to do. But the whole time I'm here, all of this metaphysical side of myself is expressing itself every day.
Yeah.
And there are like 2 people on this 450 staff team that I could have these conversations with.
Yeah.
So it was just building for me. By the time it got to a year later, so summer of 2019, I was just getting this uncomfortable feeling like I was supposed to be doing something else somewhere else. And mind you, I got a pretty decent job making 6 figures and perks are good as a director in the casino business. Right. I like it here. Make a long story short, by December, I concluded I need to go. There's something else I'm supposed to be doing. So I hand in at the beginning of December, give them 6 weeks. And it wasn't that I wanted to leave because I didn't really understand where next was, but I just knew this part of the journey I was finished with. There were a couple other things that stalled in the project. So to me, it all made sense. And part of my rationale when I turned in my resignation was that they were going through some other changes in the company, and so for them to have to do without my position, which I had two other managers had it all locked in for them anyway, and they could do without paying me 10 grand a month. Here, let's just change that. So I now am planning on going to Nevada and found a house I like there. So I'm just going to continue to consult, and I'm going to close on this house like the week after Valentine's Day. In between, I've got time to head to California, spend some time with my son before I go close on the house. But along the drive from east to west, my guides are nagging me in the car. Don't close on the house. Don't close in the house. I didn't understand why, but when I got close enough to Nevada, I made the phone call, knew I was going to lose my escrow money, but I just said, I can't move on with this.
Yeah.
Got to my son's place 3 days later, COVID locks us all down. Yeah,
Yeah,
Lowell,
so
you
this
weren't
is
going to
all
move
at the
anywhere
beginning of
anyway.
2020. You are like on the road or visiting, and you get locked down somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And where was
So
this
now
located?
I'm in Santa Rosa at my
Okay, so yeah,
my
you're
son's place.
you're not too
But
far from Mount Shasta, just 3.5 hours, 4 hours.
I've driven past it a few times, and I had a familiarity with it, but it wasn't really anything that I was compelled to go to at the time.
Well, you had to be mystified by the look of it.
The
I mean,
first time,
oh,
yes.
holy shit. I was just up there yesterday looking at a house, and because I'm moving there in about a month. And just every time I see it, when there's no clouds, especially, it's just like, whoa. Especially if
Oh
you
yeah,
drive from Oregon down, it's just this
right on
behemoth.
I-5, and it's
Yeah.
not just Shasta; it's that little black butte next to
Oh,
it
I
that, to
know.
me, looks like a crystal that
It
just needs to
does.
be dusted off.
I know.
I
It
think
does.
she's there to amplify Shasta's energy, but I
Yeah.
digress.
Yeah.
So we're locked down for a while, but in that meantime, my spiritual curiosity is growing. I am able to connect in June with somebody that can connect me to past life experiences I've had in Atlantis, which I was always curious about.
Right.
And, the only framework I had of Lemuria is that, if you're going to learn about Atlantis, you're going to hear something about the Lemurians along the way.
And can I
But
ask you
that
something about that
was
really
it.
quick?
Yes.
I also have connections to Atlantis, and a lot of people feel that if they're a Lemurian starseed, and what we mean by that is like you're a reincarnate, and you have very strong connections and contracts to certain past civilizations that you've come back here in this time to do it again or bring that frequency back into reality. A lot of them feel like it's either or. And I have these connections to both. And I often find that the Lemurian energies usually happened, if we were thinking of a linear time frame, before, and the Atlantean energies were a little bit after, but there was still this
Overlap.
Yeah, yes. And that the
Absolutely.
consciousness that incarnated here into this realm, people think, well, if I'm an Andromedan starseed, how can I also be an Atlantean and a Lemurian starseed and also have been a peasant in the 1500s and a guy?
All different spots on your
Yes.
timeline.
Yes.
All different past lives you've had and Akashic records you have stored away.
Yeah.
So now, as these things kind of come into your understanding, like profound thoughts that you're having that I don't know where I came up with this, you are unlocking experiences you've had in the past, and now we know why, or they're going to come in handy here soon.
Yeah. And do you think that the emphasis on Atlantis is so strong because Atlantis was just a little bit more like, especially America, but just a little bit more like our modern age, and Lemuria is just so different than the way we operate in society, that it's still more obscure. It's like, for me, I love Sedona. I really do, but it's been very commercialized. There's lots of money there. It feels very Atlantean there, even though it's full of Lemurian energy. But it's like the difference between Mount Shasta and Sedona. There's this like
I know
capitalistic, or
what you're saying.
you
If I
know,
had
I'm
to
trying to
express it
say it.
energetically,
Yeah.
Mount Shasta is like the matriarch and they're like the
Yes.
teenagers.
Yes. Yes. And
That's
it
kind
feels
of the
like,
energy that I pick up on.
why do
It's
people
like the
put
difference between Minneapolis and St. Paul. St.
yes.
Paul, very conservative, old
Yeah.
school. Minneapolis, very cosmopolitan. Yeah, yeah, yes, yes.
Yes.
Same
There's
kind of
something going on
parallels.
there. And
Yes.
there's such an emphasis on Atlantis, and people, and in our modern day culture, talking about Atlantis, but you don't really hear about Lemuria unless you get into spiritual or conscious circles. And even the name Lemuria isn't what they would have called it, and I understand that. But there's not as much of an emphasis on that. So when people are talking about it now, there's still a lot of people who haven't heard about this. So of course Atlantis will come up in your process, and Lemuria is connected to that whole thing. It was the both of them that were coinciding when the great
Yes.
cataclysm and the flood happened, and we came into this third density. So when you started to remember certain past lives, how did that lead you back to Shasta?
Well, I wasn't actually going to head to Shasta when the lockdown was relieved, kind of the end of June. I just wanted to head to nature.
Yeah.
And so to me, it was just me solo. I can drive anywhere I want. I wanted to go back and explore like the national parks in the Southwest, Zion, places in Utah, find the four corners. And there are so many places to go. I just wanted to get out in nature and explore that grandeur. Some of the research, though, I was doing when I was looking to places to go, some of the Facebook posts were that some of these parks weren't even open
Yeah.
and that they
Right.
might not be. So I don't want to drive all the way there and find out that it couldn't get in. And then the very next thought, nothing else happened. The next thought in my head was Mount Shasta.
Mount Shasta. And of course it was
Boom.
open.
Well, for me, when I started to look at that, I went, wow, from where I am, it's a 4 hour drive. So I can get there in the morning or an afternoon. And this
Yeah.
is a pretty easy commute. And then I'm there. So I didn't really have any other framework for it other than that.
Yeah.
When I got there, it was a Sunday. I drove up, and it must have been, mm, it wasn't early enough for me to check into my hotel. So it was kind of like the noon to three. I didn't know any of the area. So I thought, what I'll do before I can check in is I'm just going to walk down Main Street and I'm going to see what's where and why.
Right.
I love crystal shops, so I was going to certainly explore those. And there was one in particular that I heard had authentic Andaras, and it was a block off the main drag, the Crystal Room.
Crystal Room.
And that
Yeah.
was the one I was going to save for last. So as I started walking up and down the main street, my attention's being brought to, things in the windows. See this book called, something having to do with Telos in a bookstore. Move to a little shop by a Japanese artist called Blue Star Child Gallery. And the stuff you'll find illustrated in there will blow you away. She had these star codes, light codes, illustrations that she had drawn, and they were up on the wall. They're 3 feet wide by 10 feet long, and they're all drawn by hand.
Mm-hmm.
Perfectly symmetrical without any ruler or curvature. I don't know how she did it. And then she goes back and colors them.
Yeah.
She had lots of them on the wall. Those were the things that would trigger you like spiritually. And then she had all this cosmic things because she loves bunnies, and you could see how her expressions came out in that.
Yeah.
Anyway, there was something about this place that I had to return to. And the day that I went in there, I saw these shoe covers at the entryway. And I thought it was because of, COVID. I wasn't thinking culturally until, I saw that. But that's when I finally looked up before I left and saw that first code like that. I needed to come back and I wanted to see the detail in that. And there were more. There were actually two more rooms in the back with these when I'll return later. When I learned that the shoe covers were because she's Japanese and you either remove your shoes or you cover them. And that's just kind of polite in this
Yeah.
sacred space.
Yeah.
Anyway, Haruko's shop will be a linchpin for me later because two of the illustrations I'll see in her shop, I will see engraved into some crystal panels when I get to Telos.
Wow.
Unmistakable, this is her stuff and validated by my tour guide.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was the first day. The second day, I set out hiking, not knowing anywhere I was going. I had certainly reached out, I think maybe it was 10 days before I was actually going to go, when I started to do some research. Maybe I can find a tour guide because, there's tour guides there. And the first couple emails I got back, they laughed at me. They laughed. You want to come up next week? You want to book something? Now, I'm booked out for months. And so that's kind of how it started. But I did find one of them. Paula Venus was wonderful. And he at least gave me some directions to some of these sacred locations that I could find on my own. At least, I had some places to look. So I started the first day, I'm in my 60s, hiking like I'm a teenager. And I make the mistake the first day that I will learn not to make again. I headed downhill at the beginning of the day, only to learn that at the end of the day, when you want to get out, now you have elevation changes. And so you should think in the future of going uphill first.
Yeah.
So that at the end of the day, it's all downhill after that. Very valuable lesson. But I was sensing these places I can only call energetic.
Yeah.
I don't know what drew me to them, but there was something about them that when I hit that space, almost physically, like the hair on my arms would come up. And I just felt something here that when I walked along, I could find others, but it was different. The more I was there, the more that sense just seemed to refine itself. I was on the mountain every day hiking, every day. Some days I would just sit there in my chair and just take it in because that's all I needed to do was just be here.
Right.
And it was so peaceful, serene that, man, it felt great. I had gone with the idea that I was going to be there for a week. I was going to contact my son because he's not working either. And maybe after that, we'll head to Reno or Tahoe for a week. And by the end of the first week, I texted him. I said, there's something more here I want to research. And he said, stay as long as you want. So I did. And I'll just make a long story short, give you a timeline. It'll be 5 weeks before I have to go back to Santa Rosa before I finally leave. I was just in this groove that I didn't want to leave.
Yeah, I
So
understand.
I wouldn't. So by the time I got to the end of the second week, I was up at this place on Old Ski Bowl Trail. If you're familiar with it, if not, just mark this down. You'll want to know where this place is. It's wonderful. And it's really the highest place you can drive to. So there were this older couple about my age that I'd seen hiking around the area, and I could tell they were saying their goodbyes before they were going to leave. And I could overhear them talking about this sense of physicality. There's just some physical thing that they felt that they was just notable. And that is when it finally hit me. Holy cow, Lowell, you've been hiking like you should have had a day in between to recover, but you didn't. And yet you feel like you can go out there and do it again today. Whatever energy is there on the mountain, it is palpable, 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 palpable.
Oh, yeah.
You will feel it. And as time went on, these energetic places got to be not so hard to find anymore. And I suspect that that's part of the veils kind of thinning for everybody there. But people going there are just more in tune and kind of what to energetically look for.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely find that that there are things there that some people interface with, other people don't. I just had a retreat recently, and of course it was a medicine retreat, but that doesn't mean we're working with medicine the entire time,
Right.
So there was Um, there were a few moments where I had a participant who looked to the mountain and it wasn't there. There was nothing there. And then when she looked back, it was there again. And I think what it was doing was interfacing with her about the multidimensional nature of the mountain itself. And, you know, when those lenticular clouds surround Mount Shasta and there's lights in there and there's things shooting out of there, I believe it's very possible that under certain conditions and at different times, the mountain has this ability to not shape shift. That would almost make it feel like it stays 3D, but it's changing its shape within 3D. But it's able to, it's so multidimensional and there's so many different vortex points happening there that if you get in the right frequency, the timeline you're in, the shape of the mountain, what's happening there, like the Sasquatch that are there. There are Sasquatch beings, but they're not in the third density. So when we sense
Mm-mm.
them, it's not like they're dead and it's the spirits of the Sasquatch. They're just on the mountain,
They're
not
in a
in our
different
visible light
frequency.
spectrum. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we're just vibrate a little higher and you'll have your experiences with them too. That's what I say, it's vibrational. I heard that word when I first started out and I couldn't really comprehend what it meant either. So I'm sure that there's a lot
Right.
of people that are going to hear it today that don't really understand it
Well, the seeds
until
have
you
been
get it.
planted.
Exactly. And so that's really all I can do. But I'm telling you, this is the most important concept we have right now because what matters in your ascension is your vibration and
Hmm.
where it needs to be. So, whatever tools you have at your disposal to keep your vibration high, use them.
Yeah.
If you don't sense that we're to the end of this shift phase in this density and moving into the next, I think when I was listening to you talk about kind of this texture of these overlapping dimensions, and to me, that's exactly what it is. We're beginning to see like that membrane you were referring to.
Yeah.
We can kind of see it.
Hmm.
And actually, we can begin to like poke our heads through it and
Yes.
see what's on the other side. You and I and others that have had these multidimensional experiences, that's exactly what we're doing. We're
Yeah.
straddling these dimensions because we can. The conditions cosmically are right for us to do this. Earth is not waiting for humanity to kumbaya together. Our consciousness is it contributes to her overall welfare. I'm not going to take anything away from that,
Absolutely.
but it's not contingent on her.
No, it
She's
is
in a
not.
cosmic cycle and it's almost complete.
Yes.
Holy cow, since
Yeah.
2012, we have been in the age of Aquarius, absorbing this new elevated photon energy, which I hope is the reason all of you are getting elevated, DNA replacements,
Yes.
upgrades.
Yes.
These bodies are getting us ready to abandon these 80 to 100-year carbon forms
Totally.
for the crystalline form that we're about to adapt.
Yes. Yes,
We
as
have
we're
all chosen to be here right now to be part of the transition team.
yeah.
Here we go.
And I think that's why I call this ascend the matrix rather than transcend the matrix or hack out of the matrix, because we are creating this third dimensional matrix for these, like we talked about before we got on the podcast, darker entities, denser forces, whether you want to reptilian, gray, they're Orion, many different factions, whatever people want to attribute those things to. But this reality that we're in that we call a false matrix is being created by us. We're the creator
Yes.
gods that they're
Yes.
using. So we
Mhm.
need to ascend this matrix by ascending ourselves. The fifth dimension, it does exist, but also it's a co-created reality that we are creating in real time as well. Like, it's a new reality. There's always a fifth dimension, but we're creating a new song that's playing on that station now. And so
Yes.
I think like Lemuria, Mount Shasta, Telos are examples of energies that hold that fifth dimensional frequency in place, which is why I think you were invited in, because there
You
was
know,
this, we want people to know about this. We want you to tell people about this.
that's what they said at the end. I
Yeah.
had two questions I had. That was one of them. Can I tell anybody else? And they kind of laughed. We want everyone to know you're here.
Yeah.
We're not, this isn't a fallacy. It's just in a dimension that they're not ready to understand yet.
Yeah.
So I, every time I hear from another person who didn't have any other awareness of Lemuria, but somehow they heard it and it just triggered them.
Yep.
And so, like you and I, when we go down that rabbit hole, we start to research everything I can. And I can't tell you the number of people that said, I've shown up at a 3 a.m. YouTube that just somehow popped up talking about Lemuria. And that's, wow, I just need to know more.
Yes.
There's more of that that's taking place. And it warms my heart that more people resonate with it without me hitting them over the head with it.
Yes.
I'm not here to prove any of this is true. That's not my purpose. I'm telling you what resonates with me and where we're going that resonates with me. And it's up for you to use your discernment and decide for yourself.
Yeah. And do you feel, and this was a question I wanted to ask you, and I know we're going to get there, but at some point, you're on Old Ski Bowl Trail. You are, I know you like to sit a chair down and just look at things and just be. And,
Yes.
But at some point, there's an opening in the side of the mountain, almost like a cave opening, or there's this portal, if you want to call it that, that opens, that might not be there in the same way if we were to go there right now, or if someone was to go to that exact spot. So I want you to take us from there, because that was something I found really interesting, like almost the plasmic, malleable nature of Mount Shasta, where it wasn't that this portal was formed and this being stepped out of it. This portal exists in the 5D version of Mount Shasta, if I put it in plain terms, and you had gotten in that bandwidth.
I've got a picture that I should share with you, and I will when this is over.
Yeah.
It was somebody heard my story and we got close, and she had her own trip. She took a picture of a portal that she captured with her camera on the side of Black Butte. Unmistakable on what this is when you see it. Oh my God! I can't, so these things exist, and now we know that we carry technology that is capable of capturing these things, video, pictures.
Yeah.
Anyway,
ooh, that just lit a light bulb off in me real quick. I hate to get us more off track, but sometimes I wonder about that. Sometimes when these high dimensional, 7th, 8th dimensional plasma light beings, or these Andromedan beings that contact me, I'm catching it on my iPhone and I'm thinking, I think that my iPhone's capturing it because my iPhone is being created by me. It's a manifestation of mine, so it's also ascending with me in some way.
Dude, that's the point. You vibrate appropriately to know that those entities are in your field. And now the technology you're holding in your hands has the ability, because you possess that.
Yeah.
You have the device that can capture it.
Yeah.
I didn't have that to begin with. I acquired it.
Yeah.
But when I was showing pictures of things that other people had taken, well, can I have that one? No, you're going to have some of your own, though, if you wait a moment.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure you had your phone with you back.
Yes.
This was in 2020 when this was still 2020, summertime of 2020. Yep. And so I'm sure you had your phone with you. Was there ever, I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but was there ever a time when you were being taken in or when you were in there that you were like, oh, I wish I could get my phone out and just...
Yeah, there was.
Yeah.
It was off before I got in, so we might as well get into
this. Let's get in there, no pun intended.
Yeah. I won't set up, what led up to it, because the whole weekend was just hitted with little extraordinary things. And the trip to Black Butte is going to end up being the day before, which here is finally a hike that I was so exhausted by, I wasn't going to go out the next morning. And yet, at 9 o'clock in the morning, get dressed, time to go. And so off we went. So I get to this part of Old Ski Bowl Trail. And if you're familiar with it, there's actually 3 levels to park on. And there are a couple of different trailheads that go off from here. But the one I like is Old Ski Bowl Trail. And it's not that trail that I'm actually going to follow. Shastina, Shasta's little sister, is
Uh-huh.
just to the left of her from my perspective. And it's over there that I spotted a couple of things a couple of days before. When I was here sitting at one of those picnic tables around noon, it looked like the way the sun was hitting the side of the mountain, there might be some cave openings over there.
Uh-huh.
And that was my motivation to head in that direction. So the day that I got back, you know that part of Shasta, it's very popular. So there's lots of families, couples. I was lucky to find a place to park. And so I did. I pointed my car in the direction where I was going. I took a picture with my phone just to point toward where I was going to go. And then I put my earpods in and started my hike over to this area. There was a trail that went off to the left after old ski bowl trails rise. And then I was going to have to, just kind of crawl up because that was off trail where I was heading. And when I got over to that area and started to make my way up, that's when I began to sense these energetic places. I'd felt them before while I was walking around, but now it was just much more profound. And it wouldn't be until a year later and a year later after that, when I come back to revisit this place, that I would see the properties of this area. That it was almost like there was a tree planted and these rocks, which were not put here by any human, but it looks like it was.
Yeah.
And why is this area so green when none of the other areas around it is? Knowing that this had been an avalanche in 1991 that had taken all this out. How did this grow in just this area? And there's another one over there. And there's another one over there. And every one of them has this energetic signature.
Yeah.
All you do is you just feel and you just want to bathe yourself in this. So this day, I had found this first particular spot, and it's my habit as a light worker. This is my chore, that my job is to anchor light while I'm here. So I actually draw an infinity sign in the sand in front of me. I'll place my crystal in front of that and just bless this place where I am and draw this, anchor this energy here in this spot. After I leave, I sense that there's an aura I've left behind that I dare you to walk through and not be affected by.
Right.
As more people do that, these are these more elevated, predisposed to higher vibrational areas that we'll talk to in a minute when we talk about golden Taya allotments. These are what the light workers are preparing. When we go to these places, we've left our mark to elevate this area. And hopefully that'll transition to the humans that pass through here too. But we did our job.
Yeah.
So after I found this first place, I saw another one a little bit further up from where I was. And I thought, well, I'm going to break this. I'm going to go up there and try it. And got the same sensations. And I saw one more spot right against the mountain. There was this area where like these three boulders came out and made like this little sitting area. The one on the left-hand side was narrow enough for me to step over and get into. It was about inseam high. But when I got into it, man, I faced back looking back at the parking lot and all the little tiny people back there. It was off in the distance, but nobody was going to see where I was unless you were kind of looking this way.
Right.
Then I decided after I had anchored light there again, I sat down, put my back up against the mountain. There's just dead brush between me and it. I'm listening to music on my earpods. I just had some water. I had some grapes. And when I finished with the refreshments and put them back in my bag, the music stopped. Well, I always carry my phone in my back left pocket. And so when I leaned forward to pick it up and looked at it, the power's off. And when I start to try to turn the power on, I feel a breeze from behind me. And now I turn around and I see an opening that's certainly higher than if I stand up, taller than me, an opening that looks like it's heading downward somewhere. So now I stand up to kind of take this in, because from where I am, I can't really see my light. My eyes hasn't adjusted to the light in here yet. So I kind of step up, and there's almost a rise from where I am before this heads down. Later, I'll understand this was a lava tube of some form in the past. But when my eyes start to adjust, it looks like there's somebody down there. And at that moment, I hear, "Do you wish to see Telos?" So
Did you hear this out loud with your
I
ears?
did. I did. In something that sounded almost Australian to me.
Yeah.
But you get your chills and you pull on your big boy pants, and yes. So I started to make my way down. And when I thought I could see this person, I thought they were maybe my height, maybe a little bit taller, until I got close enough to see what they were. They were like at least 2 heads taller than I was.
Yeah.
I was looking up at this entity while I was there. He was wearing this white, didn't want to call it a robe, wasn't a smock, but it was just kind of this draped material. But his had these like colored ribbons. And I didn't know if that was some kind of Lemurian bling or if it was indicative of some position that he held.
Yeah.
Anyway, he said, "You can call me Alex." I said, "Well, that'll be easy to remember. That's my son's name." He says, "Yeah, we know about your son. Follow me."
Mm-hmm.
And so now we start to make our way down this incline. And I can see down at the bottom, there's a light that's kind of coming from the other side. In the meantime, he's telling me about the nature of Telos, number of levels, its governing body, the king and queen. There was a lot of information without belaboring it now. We're just headed down to this area. As we get closer to whatever this light source on the bottom, and it's starting to broad out, I look behind me to see where we came from. There's no light from back there.
Yeah.
It won't be until months later, years later, that I'll understand what a portal really is, and that's what I just did. When we get to this open area, there is 5 more of these tunnels straight across from where Alex and I are. But immediately to the left, there's this platform. It looks like it's got something that would be the same as like bucket seats. There's another one over there, and there's another one over there. And while I'm taking in the logistics, Alex has proceeded to get in this thing, and he points to me to sit next to him. And as soon as I do, this thing is beginning to hover. And off we go through like the middle tunnel over there in front of us.
Now this is all in some kind of cave, like it almost feels like you're in a cave, and then you've approached this almost I'm not going to call it a train station, but buggy place that with these carts. There's horrible wording for it, I know, because I'm not.
Yeah, because I can't think of the right word. And after telling the story so many times, I can't come up with anything other than hovercraft. But that's what it did.
Were you anxious at all? Were you thinking, where the hell is this about to go? Like, were you just excited? Did you just feel the love? Yeah.
It was all magic. And it was about to get more magical. First thing that occurred to me is while this thing's moving, I feel no sensations. There's not like, you feel a breeze when it goes by. I didn't feel any of that. And yet here we go.
Weird.
When we get to where I can begin to see the light coming from the other side of this tunnel we're going through, it's starting to hit the light in the crystals that are embedded into this wall, and it's like a moving kaleidoscope. I forgot whatever Alex was telling me because I was mesmerized by this. Every inch you took, the light refraction would change. Whoa. And then you open up to the first level of Telos. He takes this craft and he brings us up to this city view that you've seen in photographs. And here is this circular oriented city laid out with this huge white pyramid in the middle and all of these crystal buildings around it. There was one in particular that got my attention right over here because it had kind of a rounded top and it just looked round. I'll find out later that is the council chambers. But While we're taking this in, he's explaining the nature of, the levels. And before we leave, he brings the craft down a little bit because I can see there's other Lemurians in the area. There's a couple here and 3 over there. And when I get close enough to see, like, I can look at their faces and make eye contact, there was just something that said, I know that person. And
Mm,
more importantly, like, they knew me.
yeah.
So then we make our way to the 3rd level, which the 3rd level is their hydroponic gardens. And I don't know how big the 3rd level is. The entirety of Telos is a question that I still won't have answered, but it's just vast.
Well, can I just interject for just a moment and just ask a few
Yes,
questions about when I've gone,
sure.
because there's a portal on Mount Shasta that is like a ceremony space. It's made out of rocks. It almost resembles sort of like the way you would set up a shamanic medicine wheel. It's in the middle of the woods, and it's called the Telos portal. And you can go there to do meditations or energy work and take your energy body in there. And whenever I've gone down into Telos, there are these multiple levels, like almost like when you're in a hotel and you can see all the way down from all the different floors, but it wasn't that straight up and simple. It was much,
Yes.
but it also felt natural. It felt like there was natural elements, cliffs or rocks or crystals that things were made out of. And there was a lot of water I would see, whether it would be waterfalls or rivers. There was definitely a river at some point, but also there was a sun. Is there a sun in there? Is there like a light
Not
source?
that I saw, but that's my next observation. When I was looking at this first level, it was like daylight conditions here. And I tried to look up to see what the source of light was because I'm thinking it's a sunbeam coming in and then
Yeah,
illuminates somehow. First of all, I couldn't see the top of wherever we were.
right.
Couldn't see the top of it. And the light was not coming from that. It was like it was coming from everything else.
Weird.
Later, and there were no shadows that were cast. So even more puzzling. Later, I'll understand that the crystals that are embedded in the area are infused with that kind of light component.
Yeah.
And that's how they can, if they want like a circadian clock effect,
Yeah.
and have dark and light, they can do that through
That's what it
programming the
looked like in my
crystals.
journey, was that there was this light coming from somewhere, and my system just registered it as like a sun, but it felt like when I say artificial, I mean it felt like we're trying to make it look like the sun. We're trying to reproduce a condition. And so it was all very confusing because I felt like, if we're under somewhere, did I walk into a portal and we're actually outside again in a
Well,
different?
that's just the thing. That's our third dimensional mind trying
Yeah,
to think that Telos is underground.
right.
And the inner earth and underground are 2 different concepts.
Yes.
Inner earth
Yeah,
in
that's what I
its
wanted to
4th
talk
and
about.
5th dimension, physical planes, but not the one that we can reach to from here.
Yeah,
So it's not
right.
like I can give you a map and tell you how to get there, even if you were vibrationally correct. It's just in a different vibrational field, but we're getting there.
Yeah.
We're reporting on what we see already. That's where my stories come from. I'm telling you from an experiencer's perspective, here's what you'll see. And not just me. Telos is a place that you'll actually be able to visit later.
Yes. And when you were there, you felt like you were outdoors. So it
Yes.
wasn't, because a lot of people, when they imagine these inner earth cities or going under Mount Shasta down into this volcano underground, they think that you're going to be in some big hidden, I can't remember the name of that civilization that they found, that was all underground, but like this huge cave, and we're all underground here, and it's like we're hiding out down here. And that's not how I see it in the journeys.
No.
That's not how I feel into it. It feels like it is a different place, and Mount Shasta acts as a gate for it, but a way
Yes.
to access just a different realm.
Yeah.
It's different. Like I tell people all the time, you can't take a shovel and go find Telos. It is a vibrational
Yes.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard for us to put in our minds that I have to raise my vibration to go to inner earth,
I
but
know. I know.
that's the reality of it.
Yeah.
It's just in a different plane. And God, when the rest of the listeners get to that place, you'll just know what I'm talking about. but you're all vibrationally adapting to get there. So it's just stories like this that I'm here to share to tell you you can get there.
Yeah.
I am no different than any of the rest of you if we haven't made that illustration clear so far. And my human part, this carbon body, ain't any different than the rest of you. I will admit that meditation has changed my health in ways that I wouldn't really appreciate. I'm
Yeah.
71 years old. I don't look like it. I don't act like it. I don't weigh like it. I just, whatever it is, the universe has just made me crave the things I need to crave
Yeah.
and just put me where I was supposed to be. I didn't give any mindful attention to that. I just kind of surrendered to the process.
Yeah.
So if I hold out, my health was more of manifestation of perfecting
Your
meditation
vibration.
than anything. That
Mm-hmm.
was the tool that got me where I needed to be. And man, it works.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, because that's another reminder. You got a lot of people listening to this who are really interested in Telos and they don't want to hear the M word anymore. Okay. They don't want to hear
Okay.
that they have to meditate. I'm just kidding. But it feels like a chore to a lot of people. And what we're
Yeah.
trying to illustrate is that it is the gateway to raising your vibration and being able to have these types of experiences. It's quieting your mind and getting out of that density level. And
Yeah.
when I've gone into Telos, it was deep in a shamanic journey, which is a meditative state. And I'll walk through the city and people will turn and look at me like almost like in Harry Potter when they all turn, like there's Harry Potter, like they recognize me. And I've
Right.
also been taken into this room or this building that had like a light coming in or an oculus in the top, but it was round and it almost would be kind of like King Arthur and the Round Table or something, like a council place. And it's like important people are going to sit here and we're going to talk about vibration and consciousness. And so you mentioned that there was some type of building that was meant for council work. And so
Yeah. But let's back up a little bit because I didn't really cover the third level. And I want to talk about the number of Lemurians, which is what they came out of that area. When I saw the hydroponic gardens and how it was just technically just amazing, in my mind, I was trying to figure out how does this feed this entire population?
yeah.
So, what I understand about the number of Lemurians on the planet, let's start back from, the when it sank.
Yeah.
That provisions were made for a couple million in Shasta. All the records had been moved prior to that, but it came so quickly at the end that only 25,000 of them ever made it.
Yeah.
So, true, they were going to multiply over time. And I understood when this whole idea came into my awareness, there were like 1.2 million Lemurians that were in Telos at the time.
Yeah.
Now, since then, more recently, I understand there are more like 4.7 million of us in different forms.
Oh,
Some
I
of us are
see.
you and I in
Right.
these incarnations.
Got it.
Some of that is the beings that tell us, but we are here en masse right now
Yeah.
because we answered the clarion call and we're here for that.
Yes. Yes. So,
So it was more puzzling then. How do you feed 1.2 million people on this?
yeah.
Well, that's when they had to remind me of the nature of their bodies. They're not carbon bodies that are contingent on feeding them. They're crystalline bodies that eat because they like to eat, not
Yes.
because it's required. Whoa, that's a whole different kettle of fish, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's been times where I have had clients in sessions or in retreats where Lemuria has come up and we've tuned to it. And I hate to even call it currency, but I even had this vision of Lemurian food being grown by someone and it being embedded with healing energy. And so instead of it being a food to survive, it's medicine or it's just pleasure or it carries a vibration. And it's like there's this reciprocity where here, I grew this food and it contains all these healing codes, and I'm sharing that with you in exchange for this. It operates more out of synchronicity rather than just currency payments, but also that the food is less about sustenance and more about just enjoyment or vibration or containing some type of light code. That was,
Everything contributes to your spiritual development.
yeah,
The council, that's the purpose they serve. They're not here to legislate anything. There's nothing to argue about. Their
yeah.
job as the spiritual advisors, guides, leaders, that's their role, is to helping everybody else get to their next level of awareness.
And when you mentioned a king and a queen, that was interesting because the
Yes.
king archetype comes up a lot for me, and it has for years. And the reason that I spell king with a Y is because it's like a 5D heart centered leader who's in service to the entire collective, rather than the I King, which is that ego centered, ego driven, sort of tyrannical leader, or not even leader, dominator. And so there's this Lemurian Atlantean thing that always comes up when I tune to the king energy. So when you brought up the king and queen, is that sort of their role as well, is almost being of service to the whole, since
They
there's not
are
this
the
hierarchy?
supreme. Yes, exactly right. So in the Council of 13, the king and queen are the 13th.
Yeah.
I thought for the longest time that Adama, being the head priest, that he was the 13th. That's not correct. So let me put this into perspective. The 12 council members are 6 pairs of um, twin flames.
Wow.
Adama and his twin flame, and the others that serve this spiritual purpose, they're twin flames. The 13th is the seat held by Ra and Ranamu. So in the event that a tiebreaker would have to come, they certainly have the ability to overrule. But in a place like that, with uh, the law of one,
Yes.
as kind of their prevailing thought,
Yeah.
there's, like I said, there's nothing to legislate. It's just a matter of they're preparing, like the rest of us on the surface, for the next evolution of their own. They're ahead of us, probably 50 steps, waiting
Yes.
for us to catch up.
Yeah. Yeah, and the number 13 is really strong for me. It's always been my favorite number. I've got Metatron's cube back here, and that's there are 12 spheres surrounding the 13th one.
Right.
Our
You
12
are the
stranded
13th.
exactly. The
Yes.
12 stranded DNA is actually 13 strands if you count the entire one as the one.
Yes.
Just like in the astrology I work with, there are 13 signs, or a 13th house, which encompasses all the other ones. But it's like the infinite place where everything stems from, the infinite void. And what it sounds like is that they hold that 13th energy because they represent the all. It's a sacred role, but it's also a responsibility on their part to hold that. So it's just a different way of looking at kings and queens. And I've never really been able to have this conversation with someone about the way those archetypes are ascending, but also the way that they exist in these realms that operate outside of hierarchy and
Yeah.
duality. So,
Yeah. See, we're just thinking of our 3-dimensional experience and what we know about royalty from that framework.
yeah,
And they weren't perfect. They were here learning those roles. That was part of their journeys. But the ones that we're talking about are all in higher realms.
yeah,
And they're here, they were given those roles for a purpose.
that's right.
Just like when you and I return, we'll have those roles to assist others with their metaphysical journeys too, because of our new level.
Yeah.
And yours and I, they're not the same. No one's is the same. We're just all kind of evolving together.
Hmm.
Anyway, not sure where we left off.
Well, I'm very curious as to what happened once you were in there, where you were taken. I know that you saw the gardens, you're understanding about their bodies, you're basically being shown how society could be up here on the surface
Yeah.
of planet Earth. And then where did we go from here, from the gardens?
Well, we came back up to the main level into that building that I told you I had noticed before. And whatever this hovercraft is came down in front of it, and I could begin to see what this was. It was a round building made of, panels of crystals. But the opening, which would have been, in my mind, the equivalent of like French doors with no doors, to the left and the right of this opening were inscriptions that were very familiar, I thought, to me. And when I looked closer, I said, Alex, these look really familiar to me. And he says, yeah, those are Haruko's work. They're accurate. That's why they're here. So if you ever get to visit Haruko's shop, she has one room in the back that clearly was an office when this thing was put together. But it's the place where she has 5 of these giant, codes. When I was in that room, when I went back the day that I visited and I stumbled across it, I asked her if I could meditate in there for a while. And she said, well, that was the purpose for the room. 20 minutes later, I came out, my eyes were flooded. I was just overwhelmed by whatever was there. But when I left, the code on the left-hand side of the door, I think, is the new Earth code. And the one on the right was the new angelic code, or, our DNA's original blueprint. That's what those codes were.
Yeah.
He said they put them there because they were accurate. Here's what new Earth's codes look like, and here's what the new human blueprint looks like.
Wow.
So then we stepped inside, and now there's this sensation that I pick up on really energetically. And it's like the best hug I've ever had was just like compressing into my heart core the whole time I'm in the room. And the first thing my 3D little mind goes, well, I guess if you're going to have a meeting in here, you soften people up on the way in. This is a good way to do business, right? Well, I'm taking this sensation and I see that there's 5 more people that enter the space. I assume the one in the middle is Adama. He's taller than the others flanking him, and those are 4 female. The illustration that everybody knows him to be does not do this guy justice, but is close as we're going to come.
Yeah.
So anyway, they pointed for a place to me to sit. 3 of them sat over here. 3 of them sat on the other side. And each one of them told me a little bit about who they were and what their role on the council was, because they're all council members. Then it seemed like, I can't remember anybody's name except the very first woman who taught, Shiama, because she is going to chair this meeting from here out. She's the one that's going to speak until Adama has an observation to make at the end, but this is her story. So she's going to tell me, why this is happening today and what I'm doing here. So she went on to explain that the Lemurians there are preparing for the shift like everybody else.
Yeah.
They know it's imminent. And so this was July of 2020, right? In my mind back then, winter solstice 2020, that was when I expected it to hit. Everything I read lined up to that. And so when they were starting to tell me that, oh my God, did the hair on my arm stick up? Well, if they sense it, then it's got to be right.
Yeah.
She went on to assure that that's what they believed, and they had technologies to share with the surface when the time was ready, and that the day would come when surface dwellers would be able to visit Telos as well. We're that close to the shift taking place.
Yeah.
So then she began to tell me why me. There were 3 things that came up. The first one, she said, and I didn't really appreciate it for what it was at the time. She said, well, we can tell that you can hold fifth dimensional awareness, 5th dimensional consciousness.
And did she
and I
say
thought, well,
those
yeah,
words?
Of course I can. I'm trying to remember the exact words, but yes, it was, you can hold this consciousness.
Yes.
5th dimensional. I'll think of the term because it wasn't that long, and I don't know why my mind's failing me today, but that's what she said. I thought it was a lovely thought, and I said, of course I do. It won't be until later that I really appreciate.
Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of got in because I think they boosted my vibration before I went in.
Uh-huh.
And over time, that'll sink into my physicality and my awareness. And so, oh yeah, that really did happen. Then two, she said, we understand you're the protector of Gaia. So remember that ayahuasca journey I was telling you about back in 2018? That on night two was what Mother Ayahuasca told me I was.
Yeah.
No one had heard that story. No one had uttered that phrase. How in the hell did they know it?
Yeah.
But somehow they seem to.
Yeah.
And then the third piece of this was that when the time came to rejoin with the surface, they were asking if I would consider being an emissary. Now, I still hadn't comprehended that I was a Lemurian.
Right.
And of course, I would do this on their behalf. It's one of the purposes that I was here, but I'm still a little slowly coming into where I am in the scheme of all of this. And that was pretty much the end of it. So Adama had said just something briefly that really said the council is unanimous in this, and we hope that you'll assist when the time comes.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, I like muttered out because in my mind, it's racing me. Why me? How me? You don't utter those words, but they're running through your head. I said, I'd be honored. And at that, they got what they wanted to. They stood up, bowed my direction, off they went.
I feel like you already signed up for this, Lowell, and so they just needed your human. They needed the fullness of your ego, even what you had identified as you up to that point, to catch up with the mission. Because I don't think what I'm getting psychically right now is I don't think that your connection to them had always happened this soon in every single timeline. And because the timelines keep collapsing and the bifurcation happened, and we're actually, it was almost like they were waiting for this true signal to say, okay, it is going to happen now. Like all timelines are pointing to the ascension fully occurring, and now we can allow this experience to happen for you at this time, is what it feels like to me. And
dude, you put it really wonderfully, because that's kind of the energetic way I've come to terms with it. I sat with her for a long time and tried to get my mind to figure out what it was. And energetically, I came to that same conclusion you just illustrated.
Yeah.
Yes, I came back for this very purpose. And if we think about interactions we have with beyond Earth sentience, inner Earth realm, whatever it is, these dimensional experiences we're having with guides and higher dimensional things that are here to assist, I've concluded that, when their real involvement happened, because I understood humanity was hands off. They're left to their own evolution, let them learn on their own, until we once again misused atomic power and dropped it on the planet. That's when we demonstrated what we could do to a cosmic asset, not ours. We're here for 80 years, 100 years, and this is what we're going to do to the planet.
Right.
That's when I think I started to hear these reports of these light craft that are showing up and disabling warheads. Mm-hmm. Oh my God. Oh, yeah. Okay, now I see there's real help that's here. But man, that's when I saw the cover up of this UFO activity. Mm-hmm. So if you know the Indigos and those of us that were born in the 50s, I think here's the first wave of the call to come, because in order to really enact things on the physical plane, we've got to reincarnate here on this plane. Yes. And so we chose to incarnate as humans, but we know what our mission is now. Yeah. It's clear as a bell to me what it is now. Yeah. It's clearing the path for Earth's consciousness to rise, and the Lemurians are showing up en masse.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that the Atlanteans aren't too. So let me make this clear. Yes, shit went sideways on their watch, but not every Atlantean was dark.
That's right.
They have just as many wonderful technologies to share with us when the time comes.
Yeah, beautifully said, because there's a lot of, spiritual folk, I'll put them all in a category like that, who still operate in a lot of duality thinking, us versus the reptilians, the Atlanteans versus the Lemurians, the Mars, Tiamat.
And you can see exactly where they're stuck, don't you?
Yes. Yes,
Yes.
exactly. In that ping pong match of the duality and
Hmm.
judgment as well around what should have happened and what didn't happen, and are you this or are you that, instead of it being many things at once, and understanding that time is not linear where these beings operate. I know that
Right.
time also was weird when you got out of Telos. Before we get you out of Telos, because I don't know if I've ever heard you talk about your journey out and what it was like coming out of
Yeah,
the
we
mountain.
need to just finish. Yes, let's
But
get
first,
out. So,
before, I just have a
mhm,
couple questions, and these
of
are things that
course,
my brain wants to know. What what did it smell like in there? Like, what did Telos
I
smell
didn't.
like?
I didn't really have nothing registered as a scent in there.
Interesting. And what was the temperature like? What was the air quality like?
Like a beautiful day outside.
Yeah.
When you pick an ideal weather conditions, that's what I had.
Yeah. And what were their voices like? Was it very humanoid? Was there an accent? Were they speaking English to um not pander to you? I don't mean it that way, but to get
I
on your
think they
level.
did, not to pander, just so that I can understand their interpretation.
Yeah.
Like I said before, what I heard was like an Australian English, that kind of whatever accent they possess. That's how I heard it. But I believe, we're meant to connect with them
Yeah. Yeah.
telepathically,
Totally.
and our communication is going to come that way. But there's a few things we need before that can happen. And some of these downloads that we've all been experiencing, I understand the first ones we get are the interpreters. We have to have that mechanism inside of us. So when they send our messages, we have the capacity to understand what they're sending us now. So
Right.
I understand. I went through that process too. And then there was a period where I was getting downloads daily. And here's how I kind of mark that. It's my understanding, at least in my little world, that when I was getting a ringing in my left ear, that was a spiritual download I was receiving. And when I got them with my right ear, physical downloads.
Mm.
So, as you might imagine, this was going off like a freaking ticker all the time.
Yeah.
And this, not so much. It
Hmm.
wouldn't be till later that this would start to kick in. And then I could feel some physicalities like taking over. But boy, did I appreciate one of the first pictures that was taken with me among the light beings was a photograph from the back of me with this beam of light hitting the back of my neck right here.
Uh-huh.
And it's the source of my connections every time I connect. So I mentioned these downloads. After a few months, they happen so frequently that I wish I'd kind of tracked them. So every time I had one after that, I put a little marker on my calendar so I can go back and look at them. Holy shit, do I have a lot of data on downloads that I've been receiving, and I'm no different than anyone else. So, kids, be aware if somebody's trying to explain what tinnitus is to you, I have another perspective for you
Yeah.
to consider.
Yeah.
And this one opened up whatever channels I had to some profound things I was saying. I had no idea where it came from.
Yeah. But Lowell, don't you notice that when these downloads are happening or when these ascension related ear ringing happens, that it will wobble from one side or to the other? It'll be like this side only or this side only. And
Yes.
it won't go on for days and days and days. It happens
No,
maybe
no,
for
no.
20, 30 seconds or for a couple of
Yeah. Well,
minutes.
if it's 30 seconds in my world, that's a profound one. And I've
Yeah.
only had a couple.
Yeah.
Usually they're 10 or 15,
That's
almost
right.
like an ear test.
Yes.
That's how but my frequency's always the same. All I can do is make it louder or softer,
Hmm.
but I can't change what the sound of it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a lot of people who get confused about that when they think they've got tinnitus. And I'm thinking, you're having psychic openings, your
Oh, boy, you
throat and
are
your third eye are
blessed.
opening, you're getting downloads. I mean,
Yes,
it
here, let
happens
me
to
give you
me
your
all the
perspective
time.
to consider.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. So take us from
All right, now
how
we're
you got
leaving.
out of Telos.
Yes. So we made our way back to the staging area. And here I hadn't said much of anything, and it was intentional. I wanted to take it in while I was here, see what I could see, hear what I could hear. And then I had two questions. One, did I tell anybody about this? And that's when Alex laughed and he says, yeah, we want people to know we're here. We're not, this isn't fiction, that we've been waiting here for the rest of you to catch up. And we have some wonderful technologies to share with you when you do. And the second one was, do I get to come back? And his answer was, yes, you do before the shift.
Um, do you ever feel a strong connection to this Alex? Like for some reason, I feel like there's a connection between you and him that I have not heard you talk about, or I I'm not really sure what I'm getting right now, or how I'm
Yeah,
trying to put this together.
there is something there. And yeah, at first I didn't explore any of that. I was just trying to take in what happened that day and, kind of all compartmentalize it and not really focusing on who Alex, my tour guide, was. There was something there. He was there for me. And it's almost like, how when we create our soul contracts and there's a manager at the
Yes.
astral level that's going to kind of manage things for you while you're here, look after them. There's lots of other players, but I'm thinking maybe Alex was that for me.
Hmm. It feels like there's the same soul family. I know if you're Lemurian, all of you would come
We're
from,
all connected. Yes, we
yes.
all vibrate that way.
But you and him in particular, it almost feels like you're either his great great something, or there's something there that is coming through right now, or almost he's an expression of what, I don't know how to explain it. Like when there's multiple incarnations of one energy, there's something there that's coming through right
Well,
now that,
there's that, but I go through the knowing that I can't even tell you how long Lemurians have been on the planet.
yeah,
They're not hundreds of years old, thousands, 10,000s. There are certainly counts of them being 30 to 50,000 years old when
yeah,
they were in their groove. So it makes me wonder, did I occupy an incarnation before Alex? And he kind of just trickled down to,
yes,
recover me from this project when the time came?
that's
I
what
don't
it
know.
feels like.
It does to me too.
Yeah, that's what it feels like, and that's why it was him. Not that he
Mhm.
doesn't have a high role. I can feel his role in. It wasn't like they just picked someone randomly. This was a purposeful contract.
Well, it was
That
explained to me. I went through temple training, whatever that kind of Melchizedek training.
yes,
I've been through that. So
mhm,
I understand what their responsibility in the cosmos is. It's to bring light everywhere. Boy,
yeah,
do I resonate with that.
hmm, yeah. So when you were, so did he sort of walk you out through the portal again and was just like, "See you later"?
I started making my way up what I thought was that incline. And the next thing I knew, I was sitting back at the place where I had begun. It wouldn't be until later that I would start to think about portals at all, and that's what this was.
Uh huh.
It would be 2 years later that I'd be back in the same area, and this time I was presenting for the last time. I was going to present at a conference, and I decided I would do a workshop, and I was going to take a dozen people up to the area that I'd been before. On the way up there were three of them, Barry, and two others, that when we got into that first place, that energetic place I was telling you about that I stopped the first time I went there, I explained that I was going to take the rest of the group this way, but that I had gone this way before, and eventually we'll be over there. So when you're finished, if you want to go that way, just meet us over there.
Hmm.
Now, that this elevation's just shy of 9,000 feet, right? Like
Right.
89 and change. So I make my way over to this space where I was instructed to show people where this door, and there's another door to Telos I've been shown, and it clearly looks like one. I was reluctant to take them there in the first place. And for a few weeks, I didn't want to do that because I thought people were going to hold me hostage if they didn't get into Telos or have an extraordinary experience. And I didn't want to
Right.
deal with it.
Yes.
And what my
Humans.
guides finally talked me off the shelf said, we're only asking you to take them there.
Yeah.
They'll have their own experiences if they're supposed to. That's all we're asking you to do. And so what I did, it would be the next day that I would find out the results of that. And oh my God, did they ever?
Yeah.
One person in particular had an encounter up above where I had taken them and drew an illustration of the person she saw. And when she showed it to me the next day, it was friggin' Alex.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So this is, as we go forward here, I know that this really opened you up and it really, tapped you in more into your soul mission, not just what you would do here and the things your human would do, but kind of what the greater picture is behind why you're here. And
Mm-hmm.
before we go today, because I'm going to have you back on our podcast for another episode, but
Yeah,
before we
dude,
go,
there's a whole
there's so
part two
much
we
we're going
need
to
to get
talk
into.
about.
But
But before we
yes,
go today, I want you to leave us with where are we now in the collective? When you tap in to the energies now, what's the message you want to give to the listeners and to the collective about your experience in Telos, but also about your soul mission and where we're headed as a collective right now?
every human being has the capacity to be where I am. I can't tell you what triggered me. I wish I could, but I don't have a map like that. All I can do is show you my map and show you what's happened along the way. There's going to be intersections for sure. But what I learned from this group that I took, everybody had their own experience. I neglected to circle back, so I want to really
Sure.
quick to talk about Barry. Barry and the two people he were with continued to go up the mountain to 10,000 feet. And we never did see him. When it got to be about 2 o'clock, and we started the hike at 10, we started coming down around 2, we made our way down the parking lot. All of a sudden, we see Barry driving up from Bunny Flat. He got a ride, and somebody dropped him off there. Somehow, dude, he found a portal that got him from up there to Bunny Flat because there was no way in the time we had for him to cover that amount of ground.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yes, there
That's the
are
multi-dimensional
portals, and
nature
here's the stories.
of Mount Shasta.
Yeah.
When there's so many people who just are not called to it yet, but just haven't heard of Mount Shasta or aren't aware of it. And they talk, I have clients all the time. When you do a Sedona retreat, we want to come again. Sedona, Joshua Tree, Sedona. And I'm like, have you been to Mount Shasta yet?
Well, I do love Sedona. I don't want to take anything away
Yeah.
from that because the Lemurian energy
It's
is
very strong
similar.
there too.
But you have to understand that when Telos was first, when Lemuria was a thing, Telos was a territory. And it covered a lot of North America.
Yeah.
So would it be unusual for Northern California and Arizona areas to be the same energies? Of course it would.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for sharing this story. Thank you for, coming out of the cave and not keeping it to yourself, and for letting people know where we're headed, tapping into your soul mission, what power we have as humans in our process, and what possibilities lie ahead, and all the magic that many of us can look forward to, if not all of us who are tapping into these new frequencies, into this new timeline. And before we go, I just want you to tell us, where can we find you? How can we work with you? And
the easiest way is my website's rather cryptic, so I'll just give you an easy way to get there. If you type Lowell Johnson, all one word, .info, it'll take you right to my website. And from there, you can find my YouTube channel, and there's tons of stuff there. Interviews, podcasts. My podcasts, when I decided to do them, and honestly, Chrys, I never wanted to.
yeah.
And my guide said, yeah, well, we'll see about that. They ended up being more Zoom exchanges, and I loved it. If people had questions, they could ask in real time.
Yeah.
Look, I wasn't meant to be a talking head, and I didn't want to be one.
Yeah.
But for me to interact with other experiencers, sign me up for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to put all of your information in the show notes below, and there's so many good resources on your website, and we'll mention some of those in part two. We're definitely going to have you back, and I just want to say thank you again for being here with me. Thank you for sharing with my audience your experience and for incarnating into this beautiful time and waking up and letting us see what's possible. I mean, it's just really incredible, and being such a ambassador and emissary for Lemuria, for Telos, for the fifth dimension, and beyond. So, is there anything else you want to say before we go?
Just to thank you, Chrys, for what you do too.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you all for witnessing us and hearing Lowell's story and being along for the ride as we continue to ascend the matrix together. We'll see you all next time.